Have you ever wondered what happens after we die? Is there scientific proof of reincarnation or the existence of the soul? Join me on an intriguing journey as we explore these mysteries through the lens of science, history, and some truly mind-bending experiments. Stay tuned till the end as this summary of SPOOK, Science Tackles the Afterlife by Mary Roach might just change the way you think about life, death, and what lies beyond. Religion tells us many things about the human soul and the afterlife. It suggests that after death we may go to heaven or hell. However, different religions have their own unique beliefs. Some believe in concepts such as reincarnation as animals or remaining in a state of sleep until awakened by a deity. Religion can never provide us with a clear answer about the afterlife. This is because the truth can only be one, yet different religions believe in different things, and none can prove that they are correct. So, what should we believe in? Should we assume that only the followers of one particular religion will have a good life after death? In this matter, science is our only hope. Science provides answers that can be tested and proven. Imagine what would happen if we could get a scientific explanation of life after death. No one would be afraid of dying. This summary discusses the scientific experiments conducted to find the human soul. You will learn about the attempts made in ancient times to discover the soul by studying the human body. Scientists have tried to determine the weight and appearance of the soul. Some researchers have attempted to communicate with souls. They have studied children who remembered their past lives. Other researchers have tried to contact the dead through mediums. Some of them have interviewed people who almost died from heart attacks. You will also learn about the methods used to detect ghosts around us. Many scientists believe that the soul communicates through sound waves, while others believe that electromagnetic waves provide a better explanation. A good scientist explores all possible explanations for an event. This summary includes interviews with researchers from different countries and fields. Will any of them be able to answer the questions related to the soul and the afterlife? Let's find out. You again. From the 1970s to the early 2000s, Ian Stevenson collected stories of reincarnation. These individuals claimed to remember their past lives. Stevenson investigated around 800 such cases, believing that reincarnation was real. Unfortunately, Ian became too old to continue traveling and studying these cases. However, his work was carried on by Dr. Kirti S. Rawat. Dr. Rawat assisted Stevenson with investigations in India and is now the head of the International Center for Survival and Reincarnation Research. Dr. Rawat and others like Ian travel worldwide to study cases of reincarnation. They speak to the families of children who remember their past lives and try to identify the child's previous personality, the person who supposedly reincarnated. Researchers often encounter people telling false stories about reincarnation. Dr. Rawat identified several reasons why people might lie about their past lives. The first reason is financial gain. People claim to be members of wealthy families, hoping that the family will believe their story and give them money. The second reason for lying about a past life is to gain attention. Dr. Rawat met 6 children who claimed to be the reincarnation of Jawaharlal Nehru, and 8 children who claimed to be Mahatma Gandhi in their past lives. A few years ago, Dr. Rawat heard a very creative story of reincarnation. A woman was clinically dead for a few minutes, and when she revived, she claimed to have been reborn with a new soul. She used this as a reason to divorce her husband. Today, Dr. Rawat has a new case. A young boy named Aishwarya claims to be the reincarnation of a man named Virpal. Virpal was a factory worker who died from an electric shock. Aishwarya stands to gain neither money nor recognition by pretending to be Virpal. Aishwarya lives in the village of Chennur. According to his father, Muni, Aishwarya recognized Virpal's family members. He even tried to kiss Virpal's wife, Rani, when she visited Chennur. Muni reported that his son knew details about Rani's favorite sari colors. When Dr. Rawat visited Chennur, he brought along an album of Virpal's photos. He showed these pictures to Aishwarya, but the boy could not recognize most people in them. He only clearly identified Virpal's son and did not recognize Virpal himself in a family photo. Dr. Rawat then took Aishwarya to a nearby village, Kalampur, where Virpal lived. There, Dr. Rawat spoke to Virpal's relatives. Some believed that Aishwarya was indeed Virpal's reincarnation, while others did not. Interestingly, many people were not emotionally invested in the reincarnation claim. They simply shared their opinions with Dr. Rawat. The only emotional person was Virpal's father, Madan. When Aishwarya met Madan, he lifted the boy onto his lap and gazed at him lovingly. It appeared that Madan believed his son had been reborn. He seemed happy and content. Dr. Rawat reviewed all the facts of the case. In his opinion, this was not a solid case of reincarnation. Firstly, Aishwarya could not remember many details that Muni had mentioned. Additionally, the villages of Virpal and Aishwarya were very close to each other, allowing information to flow easily between them. Aishwarya might have heard many facts from villagers and his parents. The biggest issue was the behavior of Muni and Madan. Both fathers were excited and happy about the reincarnation claim. Their behavior might have influenced the boy to lie. In countries like India, reincarnation cases are often less credible because the culture supports the belief in reincarnation. Parents take their children's claims seriously. Imagine if a child in America said they had been reborn. In Christian culture, souls go to heaven and do not reincarnate. Therefore, parents would not support such a story, making Western countries better sources of evidence for reincarnation. The little man inside the sperm, or possibly the big toe. Studies on reincarnation have not scientifically proven the existence of the human soul. However, reincarnation is not the only tool people have used in the quest to find the soul. For years, people have been trying to locate the soul within the human body. The Greek philosopher Aristotle believed that the human soul resided in a man's sperm. According to him, sperm was the basic form of the soul, which could not think or feel. Aristotle thought that the role of women was to nourish and nurture these small souls. Gradually, the soul within the sperm would grow inside the womb, starting to perceive the world and becoming capable of rational or logical thinking. Antony van Leeuwenhoek, a scientist known as the father of microbiology, studied human sperm under a microscope in 1667. Leeuwenhoek claimed to see a network of organs within the sperm. He also observed that sperm could move, leading him to conclude that the soul was present in the sperm. However, another 17th century scientist had a different theory. William Harvey, a renowned British biologist known for discovering the blood circulatory system, believed that the soul resided in the ova or egg cells produced by women. William Harvey developed this theory after dissecting a female deer. Inside the deer, he found tiny fetuses, which were actually baby deer, but mistakenly identified them as ova. Later, in 1875, a German scientist named Oskar Hertwig observed the fusion of sea urchin sperm and ova under his microscope. He demonstrated that the soul was neither in the sperm nor the ova, but perhaps formed through fusion. After Hertwig's discovery, scientists wanted to know when the soul actually forms. However, they could not experiment on human fetuses. A philosopher named Norman Ford tried to set boundaries on the formation of the soul. He discovered that the soul does not exist in the first 14 days of pregnancy. During this time, the fused sperm and ova can split into twins. If the soul formed before this, it would mean each twin would have only half a soul. Since scientists could not find the soul in sperm, ovum, or fetuses, they began searching for it in adults. They studied the bodies of deceased individuals and examined the brains of living people. René Descartes, a famous mathematician and philosopher, also studied the location of the human soul. Descartes dissected hundreds of human brains, searching for a possible location of the soul. Descartes concluded that the soul resided in the pineal gland, a pea-sized organ in the middle of the brain. This part of the brain is unique in that it does not come in pairs. Gigot de la Péronne was one of the first people to search for the soul in living humans. He discovered that some people did not have a pineal gland. This organ only produces a hormone called melatonin. La Péronne believed that the soul resided in the corpus callosum. He discovered this while operating on a child who had lost consciousness due to a head injury. La Péronne found pus in the child's corpus callosum, and when it was drained, the child regained consciousness. However, modern scientists have shown that the soul is not limited to the corpus callosum. They realized that the brain is a complex network, making it difficult to pinpoint a single location as the home of the human soul. Since then, scientists have made several attempts to physically locate the soul. Duncan McDougall tried to determine the weight of the soul. He placed tuberculosis patients on a weighing machine at the time of their death. According to McDougall, the soul weighs 21 grams, but other researchers could not confirm his observation. In the early 1900s, a scientist named Arthur Goodspeed attempted to see the soul. He used X-rays to examine the brains of dying people, but was also unable to find the human soul. The large claims of the medium. A medium is someone who communicates with the dead. They claim that the spirits of the deceased remain on earth and try to send us messages. If we can prove that mediums are not lying, it would mean that human souls exist, helping us discover the truth about the afterlife. Gary Schwartz, a psychology professor at the University of Arizona, believes that some mediums can genuinely communicate with the dead. He conducts research with these mediums to test their abilities. Schwartz is currently working with Alison DuBois. DuBois originally wanted to become a lawyer, but after a supernatural experience in 2000, she decided to become a medium. While on her way to the courthouse, a man bumped into her, and instead of pushing her back, he passed right through her. She felt that the man loved clam chowder and had died of a heart attack. When she returned home, she shared the story with her husband, who said that the description fit his grandfather. Gary Schwartz conducted several experiments with DuBois. He asked her to give readings to some people. A reading is a message from a deceased relative. The subjects of the experiment were to rate the accuracy of the readings. DuBois managed to give several highly accurate readings. However, these experiments were heavily criticized by the scientific community. The biggest problem identified by scientists was rater bias. Rater bias means that the ratings were not fair or logical. The reason for rater bias is that the participants knew which reading was theirs. They wanted to believe They were communicating with their deceased relatives, so their emotions made them feel the readings were more accurate. Participants rated the entire reading as accurate, even if only one detail was correct. Schwartz took the criticism from the scientific community seriously. In his next test, he eliminated rater bias. Schwartz introduced a new medium named Lori Campbell. Campbell examined several subjects and wrote down everything she heard from the spirits. This time, the subjects reviewed all the readings and rated their accuracy. Now, the participants did not know which reading was theirs, and they did not form any emotional connection with the reading. This solved the problem of rater bias. Lori Campbell's readings did not perform well. The participants found other people's readings just as accurate as their own. Only one man, George Dalzell, found his reading to be 60% accurate. Schwartz believed that Dalzell's case proved that mediums can genuinely communicate with spirits. He stated that many conditions affect mediums. While they are not always correct, mediums can give accurate readings that science cannot explain. Scientifically, Schwartz's logic cannot be accepted. Science cannot study the truth behind mediums. The Fundamentals of Mediumship. The author of this book, Mary Roach, was not ready to give up on mediums so easily. She decided to study this subject further by joining a course called The Fundamentals of Mediumship. This 3-day course was offered at the Arthur Findlay College in England. Mary's first exercise was to try giving a reading about another student. Her project partner was John. Initially, John tried to give Mary a reading, but couldn't understand anything about her. The instructor told the students to reach their partners through their energy. Mary felt pressured to make a prediction about John. First, she said she saw a boat. Mary asked John if he was a sailor. John said he was not a sailor. Next, Mary tried to guess about John's living room. She said there was a large sofa and a wallpaper with brown and green stripes. This time, John was astonished. Mary's prediction was accurate. Before she could make any more predictions, the instructor stopped her. Mediums should stop their readings after getting a few things right. So, was Mary a potential medium who just needed a bit of training? Unfortunately, no. Her prediction about John being a sailor was based on his appearance. Mary had a friend with a face as tanned and wrinkled as John's. What about her prediction about the living room? John's accent and manner of speaking indicated he was a working-class Englishman. Mary's description was based on her idea of what a working-class family's living room would look like. The students were learning new things, but they weren't learning mediumship. Unknowingly, they were learning to give general readings, which would reduce their chances of being wrong. They were learning to closely observe their subjects, which could provide hints for their readings. Over time, some students began to believe they had psychic powers. Some received messages from recently deceased friends, while others were contacted by their grandparents. Instructors encouraged students who claimed to hear spirits in this way. The mediumship course taught Mary many things. Initially, she thought all mediums were frauds. However, she came to believe that many mediums genuinely thought they could hear spirits, but they gathered most of their information by observing their subjects. Telecommunicating with the dead. In 1959, a Swedish painter named Fredrik Jurgensen set up a voice recorder at his window. He wanted to record the sound of birds singing. However, alongside the birds, the recording captured a man's voice. Jurgensen hadn't heard the voice himself. It was only audible on the recording. Initially, Jurgensen thought his recorder had picked up a radio broadcast, but then he heard the voice saying his name. The voice also began calling his dog. Jurgensen wrote a book about this incident and published it. Jurgensen did not investigate these voices further, but a Latvian psychologist named Konstantin Raudiv read his book. Raudiv placed voice recorders in various locations and collected about 70,000 messages. Raudiv's research created a new field of study called electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. Many people read Raudiv's book and began searching for ghosts. David Ellis, a student at Cambridge University, decided to test whether EVP was real or not. Some people criticized EVP, claiming it was just radio transmissions. Ellis tested this by going to a room that blocked radio waves. He set up Raudiv's equipment in that room. Despite several tests, Ellis did not hear anything that could be considered EVP. Raudiv claimed that the EVP he observed was real because he had communicated with it, but one of his tapes was proven to be fake. Raudiv said he heard a voice on the tape saying it would follow him that night. This voice turned out to be from a late-night radio broadcast. Many people believe EVP occurs when people mishear something. Humans have an incredible ability to create words and phrases from random noises. A scientist named C. Maxwell Cade conducted an experiment to test human creativity. He played some tapes for participants, telling them they were poorly recorded university lectures. In reality, the tapes were just white noise, the sound you hear when a radio is not properly tuned to a station. However, the participants reported hearing several words and phrases. Based on these studies, Ellis concluded that EVP is not a real phenomenon. Most of the time, it is just people mishearing radio transmissions. No recording can be clearly connected to a spirit. Jürgen Graf, an engineer at the German telecommunications company Telefunken, was unaware of Telefunken's study on EVP conducted in the 1980s. However, he pointed to a phenomenon known as the ducting effect. The ducting effect occurs in the ionosphere, a part of Earth's atmosphere that ranges from 48 to 965 kilometers above sea level. In this atmosphere, electronic reactions create pathways known as ducts. Electronic messages like phone calls can travel through these ducts. These messages can travel thousands of miles. For example, a cab driver's call in New York was once heard in Europe. Inside the Haunt Box. Fate magazine is an American publication that prints stories about supernatural activities, including numerous accounts of ghosts. Most people read Fate magazine for entertainment, but Professor Michael Persinger reads it as a scientific study. Michael Persinger has read 37 years' worth of Fate magazine reports. He compared these stories with the levels of geomagnetic activity in those areas. Geomagnetism is the study of Earth's magnetic field. Persinger noticed that reports of ghost sightings increased with strong geomagnetic activity. 3 years later, another group of scientists studied the effects of solar wind. Solar wind occurs when the sun releases magnetic particles into space. Researchers found that ghost sightings increased during periods of strong solar wind. Solar wind and geomagnetism are not the only sources of magnetism in our lives. Electrical machines also create electromagnetic fields, EMF. Persinger decided to study the impact of human-made EMF on paranormal activity. In 1996, a couple contacted Persinger about paranormal activities in their home. They said a spirit was whispering to them, and that they felt someone touching their feet at night. The man claimed to have seen the ghost of a woman floating near their bed. When Persinger visited the couple's home and searched for EMF, he found that the house's wiring was poorly shielded. The EMF levels in the couple's bedroom were very strong. To study this effect in a controlled environment, Persinger created a special room designed to block all outside sounds. He placed subjects in this room and used a device to create EMF around their brains. In this experiment, over 80% of the 1,000 participants felt a spiritual presence. Persinger focused on a part of the brain called the right temporal lobe. This part of the brain generates more strange visions than any other area. Listening to Casper. Michael Persinger believes that EMF, electromagnetic fields, cause paranormal events, but the scientific community has other explanations. Take the example of an engineer named Vic Tandy, who believes that infrasound can make us see ghosts and feel scared. What is infrasound? These are sound waves with frequencies too low for us to hear. A very low-frequency example is the sound of a bass guitar. While bass guitars don't produce infrasound, some machines do. Tandy began investigating infrasound after an incident in his lab. One day, a cleaner ran out, claiming to have seen a ghost. Tandy initially thought there might be a chemical leak, but a check of the lab revealed no such issue. The next day, Tandy also started feeling strange in the lab. He saw things moving out of the corner of his eye. When he went out to get coffee, he felt calm, but the fear returned as soon as he re-entered the lab. Tandy then saw objects moving in the lab and realized the vibrations could be caused by infrasound. He discovered that a frequency of 19 hertz was indeed being transmitted in the lab. The lowest frequency humans can hear is 20 hertz. Experiments have shown that infrasound can affect our eyes. At a frequency of 19 hertz, sound waves can make our eyeballs vibrate. Our peripheral vision is highly sensitive. This evolved because our ancestors needed to sense threats approaching from the side. When our eyeballs vibrate, things in our peripheral vision appear to move. This gives us the feeling that we are seeing ghosts. Tandy decided to locate the source of the infrasound in his lab. Eventually, he found it was coming from a large fan in the basement. Some types of heavy machinery produce infrasound when operating. Vic Tandy lives in England, home to many old castles and buildings considered haunted. Old buildings have thick walls that transmit infrasound more effectively and lack cushioned furniture or curtains to absorb these sound waves. Tandy's infrasound theory can also explain why certain rooms are perceived as haunted. Infrasound doesn't travel far. It usually remains confined to a small area. Infrasound can also trigger our body's fight or flight response. This response directs blood away from our skin to our internal organs. This explains why people feel cold when sensing a ghost. The fight or flight response makes us feel strange and increases our heart rate. All these points raise a serious question. Why can humans sense infrasound? We can't use it for communication, and it has no practical use in our daily lives. A group of researchers in North Carolina provided the answer. They discovered that the roars of lions and tigers contain infrasound. This explains why humans feel scared when sensing infrasound. It's simply a way to protect ourselves from predators. 6 feet over. Near-death experiences, NDE, are some of the best evidence for the existence of the human soul. These are cases where people who were nearly dead experienced strange phenomena. They felt as if their soul had left their body. Some people reported watching their own surgeries from above, floating near the ceiling. Others saw a bright light and felt they had reached heaven, while some encountered deceased friends and family members. One peculiar case is the story of Maria and the tennis shoe. Maria was a Mexican worker living in the United States. One day, she suffered a heart attack and was admitted to a hospital in Seattle. After her surgery, Maria spoke to a nurse in the ICU. She recounted having an NDE during which she watched her own surgery. She also claimed to have flown out of the building for a while. Maria described seeing a tennis shoe on a ledge outside the third-floor window. When the hospital staff searched for the shoe, they found it exactly where Maria had described. How could Maria have seen a shoe that no one else had noticed? If her story is true, it could be serious evidence for the existence of the human soul. There are many stories like Maria's, but none can be considered scientific evidence. Hospital staff often report incorrect facts, and patients might recount things they heard from doctors or other employees. In 2001, a scientist named Pim van Lommel published a study on NDEs. He interviewed 3 44 heart attack patients who had been clinically dead for a few moments before being revived by machines. All interviews were conducted a few days after the heart attacks, meaning the patients clearly remembered their NDEs. According to Van Lommel's study, 18% of the patients experienced NDEs. Many believe that NDEs occur due to medical reasons. Some doctors think NDEs are caused by painkiller medications given to patients. Others believe it's due to a lack of oxygen in the brain, extreme stress, or hormone imbalances. These conditions can cause strange visions, but Van Lommel's study does not support these explanations. If drugs, stress, or oxygen were the cause, then why did only 18% of patients experience NDEs? These conditions were present in 100% of the patients. Professor Bruce Grayson designed a test to solve the mystery of NDEs. He places a laptop with a bright, clear, and simple image on its screen in his operating room. The screen faces the ceiling and can only be seen from above. If a patient sees this screen during an NDE, it would mean their soul had left their body. Grayson specifically operates on patients who need defibrillators implanted. A defibrillator is a device used to restart the heart when it stops, typically in cases of heart arrhythmia. When Grayson implants a defibrillator, he temporarily stops the patient's heart, then uses the device to restart it. If the heart starts beating again within 4 minutes, there is no permanent damage. However, during the time the heart is stopped, the patient is considered clinically dead. So, what were the results of Grayson's study? None of the patients reported having an NDE. This might be due to the medications Grayson uses, which can diminish the patient's senses of sight and hearing. Grayson argued that reduced sensation should not affect a soul that leaves the body. A successful result in this project would have proven the existence of the soul and possibly provided evidence of life after death. Conclusion. First, you learned about studies on reincarnation. These stories are about people who claim to remember their past lives. It's difficult to believe these stories because they occur in cultures that support the idea of reincarnation. They do not report facts accurately enough to be considered scientifically valid. Second, you explored how people in the past tried to locate the soul. They believed that the soul was trapped in a specific part of the body. However, all these theories have been dismissed. Attempts to see and measure the soul have also failed. Third, you understood medium studies. A medium is a person who tries to contact the dead. Mediums cannot consistently give accurate readings, so they cannot be considered scientific evidence for the soul. However, science has no explanation for some accurate readings given by good mediums. Fourth, you learned about mediumship courses. Often, these courses pressure students to analyze their subjects. They teach students small tricks to help them make predictions. But not all mediums realize they are just making close observations. Many genuinely believe that spirits are guiding them. Fifth, you studied electronic voice phenomena, EVP. There have been many cases where people have heard spirits through voice recorders. Most EVPs are caused by radio signals. Some can be explained using the ducting effect. Sixth, you discovered the connection between paranormal activity and electromagnetic fields, EMF. EMF can make people feel strange, which is why ghost sightings increase during solar wind or geomagnetic activity. Seventh, you learned how infrasound can make us see ghosts. Certain types of infrasound cause our eyes to vibrate, making us see strange things out of the corners of our eyes. Infrasound can also make us feel cold, scared, and nervous. Humans might be sensitive to infrasound because it is found in the roars of lions and tigers. Eighth, you explored near-death experiences, NDE. These are typically felt by people whose hearts have stopped for a short period, making them clinically dead. NDE suggests that there might be a human soul and possibly an afterlife, but none of this provides clear or solid evidence. Throughout this summary, you've seen many examples of attempts to find the soul. Science still does not have a definitive answer about life after death, but it does show that there are things in this world we cannot explain. Perhaps the lack of a solid answer is why we believe in supernatural activities to some extent. Thank you for joining me on this fascinating journey through Spook, Science Tackles the Afterlife by Mary Roach. We've delved into the mysteries of reincarnation, the quest to locate the human soul, the intriguing abilities of mediums, and the scientific explanations for paranormal phenomena. If you found this summary intriguing, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more thought-provoking audiobook summaries. Have a question or a topic you want to explore? Drop a comment below. Until next time, keep exploring, keep discovering, and stay curious about the unknown. See you in the next summary.